It's every parent's worst nightmare when a child goes missing, and when searching for days yields nothing, the hope of finding that child alive begins to slip further and further away. Losing one child is bad enough, but losing more than one multiplies the pain for the parents, who never stop looking and never give up hope. In 2018 alone, the global figure for reported missing children stood at 465,676. Here we'll look at 5 siblings that vanished into thin air. The Bradley Sisters. On July 6, 2001, Tracy Bradley had to go to work at 6:30 a.m. Being a single parent, that meant leaving her 2 girls, 10-year-old Tionda and 3-year-old Diamond, alone. The girls' sisters, Victoria and Rita, were staying with their grandmother, and it was Victoria's birthday the next day, so the whole family were excited about the upcoming party. At 12:30 p.m, Tracy arrived back at the apartment in Bronzeville, Chicago, with Diamond's father, George, but the girls were not there, although Tionda had left her mother a note explaining that she had taken Diamond for a walk to a nearby store and a school. Oddly, Tracy and George planned to pick the girls up and take them on a camping trip. This seems strange when you consider that the next day was Victoria's birthday, and that they had never been camping before. Tracy and her family searched the local area for over 5 hours before they contacted the police, because Tracy was afraid that she would get into trouble for leaving the girls home alone. She asked George to help with the search, but he instead decided to leave. Tracy told police that she thought that the note had not been written by Tionda. She said that the grammar used in the note was too advanced for her, and she had never left a note for her mother before. Once informed, the police immediately began a search, and they also visited over 100 known sex offenders who lived nearby. More than 100 detectives were assigned to the investigation. Police expanded the search area, and more policemen joined the hunt. It became one of the biggest manhunts in Chicago's history. Because of the delay in the girls being reported missing, the police were soon searching in the dark, and the girls seemed to have vanished into thin air. Due to the inconsistencies of her statements, Tracy was questioned many times over the next 5 weeks. Over the years, police have interviewed more than 11,000 people, gathering huge amounts of information, but each lead has hit a dead end. The girl's great-aunt, Sheila, has been a proponent in the search and has never given up hope, regularly releasing age progression photos to show how Tionda and Diamond may look now, as they would be in their 20s. It's now 18 years since the girls went missing, and no suspects have ever been named by authorities, and it's still a mystery as to what happened to Tionda and Diamond Bradley. The Beaumont Children. It's been called the day that Australia lost its innocence, the 26th of January 1966. The day that Jane, aged 9, Anna, aged 7, and Grant Beaumont, aged just 4, went missing. The children lived with their parents, Nancy and Jim, in the Somerton Park suburbs of Adelaide. As it was the height of the summer, the 3 siblings took a short bus ride to the nearby Glenelg Beach in South Australia. The journey only took 5 minutes, and the children had been to the beach without their parents many times before. Jane was mature for her age, and it was socially acceptable at the time for children to have more freedom than they are offered today. It was only a short walk to Glenelg, but it was over 100 degrees and far too hot for the children to go either by bike or by foot. So they left on the 8:45 a.m. bus and were expected back on the midday bus. When they didn't arrive back at noon, their mother Nancy thought that they had missed the bus and would arrive on the next one, which was due at 2 p.m. But that bus also came and went with no sign of the children. Jim arrived home early just before 3 p.m. and immediately drove to the beach to search. At 5:30 p.m, they went to Glenelg Police Station and reported all 3 of the children missing. Because it was Australia Day, the beach was packed with holidaymakers, and several witnesses saw the children in the company of a man. The children seemed very friendly with the man, so it was thought that they had probably met the man on a previous visits to the beach, and that was why they were so trusting of him. The man never came forward to eliminate himself from the police investigation, and the children have never been seen since. There have been many theories put forward as to what could have happened to the children. Over the years, some of the most infamous and evil criminals from across Australia have been suspected of involvement in the case, including the notorious paedophile murderer Derek Percy. When questioned, he had admitted that he had been to the beach with his family on the day that the children went missing, but he denied any involvement in their disappearance. Many new leads and theories have emerged over the years, from cult kidnappings to murder, and Jim and Nancy Beaumont have always helped to investigate each claim thoroughly, in the hope that their children would return. The investigation is regarded as one of the largest in Australian history. As recently as February 2018, excavations were made at a factory site near Adelaide, in the hope of finding some trace of the 3 children. Unfortunately, nothing was found that could provide any further clues. 53 years have passed. Mr. and Mrs. Beaumont are now in their 90s, and resigned to the fact that they will probably never find out what happened to their children. To this day, the case is still ongoing, and there is still a $1 million reward for any information regarding the 3 Beaumont children's disappearance. The Skelton Brothers. Andrew was 9, Alexander was 7, and Tanner was 5 on Thanksgiving in 2010. They lived in Morenci, a small town near southwest Detroit, Michigan. Their mother Tanya and father John did not live together because they were divorced at the time. The brothers did, however, have regular planned visits with their father. Tanya planned to pick up the boys at 3 p.m, but decided to ring up in the morning to see if the boys wanted to come home early. But John told her that they weren't at home because they had gone to Jackson to visit his friend Joanne Taylor. Tanya said that was fine, and she would pick up the boys at the usual time of 3 p.m. However, after walking past John's house, she noticed that his van was still on the driveway. She rang him and asked why the van was still there if they were in Jackson, but John said his friend Joanne had picked them up, and that she would bring them back to Tanya's at 3 p.m. He then changed his mind and admitted that he had tried to hang himself and was in the hospital. When the boys did not return at 3 p.m, Tanya immediately rang the police. An Amber Alert was issued for all 3 boys, and the search began. John Skelton was arrested at the hospital, and his house was searched. The rooms were in disarray, furniture had been smashed, and mattresses had been slashed, but there was no sign of the boys. Skelton said that he had met Joanne Taylor on the internet, but it turned out that she didn't exist. He then said that he handed the boys over to a group called the United Foster Outreach and Underground Sanctuary to save them from their mother. The underground group turned out to not exist either. Skelton went to trial, charged with 3 counts of parental kidnapping and unlawful imprisonment. He was found guilty and sentenced to between 10 and 15 years in jail. John Skelton's story changes with every retelling, although he has consistently maintained that he had not harmed the boys, and they were alive and well and living with a family that he knows. Police believe that Skelton murdered the children because of the custody battle with Tanya, but are unable to charge him without any proof. The National Centre for Missing and Exploited Children have released age progression photos of the 3 boys, who have now been missing for over 8 years. Michigan police are also offering a $60,000 reward for any information on the whereabouts of Andrew, Alexander, and Tanner Skelton. The Lyons Sisters. On the 25th of March 1975, 12-year-old Sheila and 10-year-old Catherine Lyon walked to Wheaton Plaza Mall in their hometown of Wheaton in Washington, D.C. It was Easter time, and they were excited to see the Easter Bunny decorations, as well as having some lunch while they were there. They set off sometime between 11 a.m. and noon, and at 2 p.m. they were seen by their older brother Jay eating pizza at the Orange Bowl in the mall. Between 2:30 p.m. and 3 p.m. they were seen by a friend walking the half-a-mile journey back to their home, but they never arrived. At 7 p.m. their parents called the police to report them missing. The police were certain that the girls hadn't run away. Many witnesses came forward and were interviewed, and the local area and nearby woods were searched extensively, but there was no sign of Sheila or Catherine. One of the young witnesses who knew the Lyon sisters described a creepy man who was in his late teens or early 20s, who had stared at the girls for so long that she went over to ask if he wanted a picture. Police made a sketch that showed the man with long hair, acne, and scars on his left cheek. Another witness came forward and described a much older man who had been using a tape recorder whilst talking to Sheila and Catherine. He was said to be in his 50s, smartly dressed with grey hair. A sketch of this man was made public by the police, and calls came flooding in as this man was seen at other malls around the area. A local man named Lloyd Welch also came forward and told a security guard at the mall that he had been there on the day that the Lyon Sisters disappeared, and he had seen tape recorder man get into a car with the girls. Welch was given a lie detector test, which he failed, but police just thought that he was trying to get the $9,000 reward that was being offered for any help in solving the case. Almost 40 years later, in 2014, after taking a fresh look at the case and going back over paperwork, police came across the file containing the statement from an 18-year-old Welch. On a hunch, detectives went to re-interview him, who was serving a 33-year sentence for sex crimes against a 10-year-old girl at the time. Welch then admitted that he had kidnapped the Lyon Sisters almost 40 years earlier. Later, a man named Henry Parker came forward and said that his cousin, Lloyd Welch, had arrived at his home on Taylor Mountain Road, Virginia, in the spring of 1975. He had brought 2 large army-style duffel bags with him that were badly stained and smelled very bad. Parker said he helped Welch place the bags on a fire in the backyard, and they burned the bags for several days. At trial, Welch avoided the death penalty by pleading guilty to both murders. He was sentenced to 48 years in prison, and the remains of Sheila and Catherine Lyon have never been found. The OBrien Brothers. At the time of their disappearance in November 1996, Adam was 14, Trevor was 11, and Mitchell was 4. The brothers were visiting their father, Gary O'Brien, who lived in Torbay, Newfoundland, and Labrador, Canada. Their parents were divorced, and their mother Diana had custody of the brothers. At 8:30 p.m, Diana received a call from Gary. He stated that he would not be returning the boys, and that he had booby-trapped his house so that it would explode if anyone tried to get in. Diana asked to speak to the boys, but Gary refused to let her and hung up. The police were immediately informed. Gary had indeed rigged up his house with a crude bomb made from 2 400-pound propane tanks. If detonated, the bomb would have destroyed not only Gary's house, but also several houses in the area. Gary O'Brien has a history of mental health problems, as well as suicidal and violent tendencies, although he is described as a resourceful man. A year after they went missing, Gary's car engine was found in the ocean near Flat Rock, which is approximately 6 miles from his house. There were no bodies or any other clues at the site. Diana believes that Gary dumped the engine off the cliffs in order to throw police off the scent. Gary is wanted by Interpol, who list him as an internationally sought suspect charged with abduction. They have also warned that he could set traps that will cause bodily harm. Diana believes that her children are still alive and are being kept somewhere without access to technology. Several age progression photographs of the boys have been released over the last 20 years, and the case remains open. So that's 5 siblings that vanished at the same time. Hopefully some information will come forward soon to help the parents of these missing children find some sort of end to their torment. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.